just do a little edit later. Here we go. Had to do it. The 90s are back. Mech, Fran, let's go. This is mutant music. Spark the revolution to this. This is mutant music. X-Men, yes, it is destined. This is mutant music. Spark the revolution to this. This is mutant movement music. X-Men, yes, we are legend. Yeah, we are here. Woo! You know what, though?
Let's go.
X-Men 97 revisits the iconic era of the 90s as the X-Men, a band of mutants who use their uncanny gifts to protect a world that fears and hates them, are challenged like never before, forced to face a dangerous and unexpected new future.
The X-Pod 97 will track those adventures weekly. To that we say, to you, your X-Pod.
Yeah, here we are. We're back. It's episode 5. Sorry, we shouldn't have left you without a new pod to step to. We apologize. We were having all types of adventures all over Philadelphia. I got to shout out the city of Philadelphia for being amazing. WrestleMania weekend, WrestleCon, so much stuff happened.
You were in WrestleMania.
I was in WrestleMania, like literally. More on that later, maybe on another pod. Who knows? Because that is a story.
Entered WrestleMania with permission.
I am now WrestleMania canon, and that is still crazy for me to even say. But anyway, Marcos, how you been, man?
I've been good, man. You know, a lot of debauchery and adventures were had in Philadelphia. Great city, great time. You know, can't wait till the next time we get up.
Yes, indeed. I feel it's funny to talk to you now as if we weren't together for like 4 days straight, but like being like, oh man, it's good to see you again. Like, nah, I've literally saw you every day. So here we are. But we tried our best. We were like, oh, we'll get a pod done on the road. And that doesn't happen really. It's very difficult. So today, though, we have a guest and we have a double episode. We're going to make up for lost time by giving you twice the X-Men today and 1/3 more guest. And I'm talking about my friend and yours. Down below us, you see Cap Caveman on Twitter. You may know him for his amazingly hot takes on wrestling, on baseball, on everything else in between. Right. I know him as my friend Derek. Cap, what's up, buddy?
What's happening, man? So glad to be here. And again, screw you jerks for the wonderful time you had in Philadelphia while I stayed here and didn't get to go anywhere. I just got to watch all of your fun shenanigans all running all over the place.
This dude threatened to leave the group chat when I left for Philadelphia.
Rarely. It wasn't like a permanent leaving. It was just I don't want to be part of it. It's not even the bragging post. It's not even like you sending us pictures of you with Jade Cargill and all of that. No, it's just it's Teak asking you when are you going to link up for cheesesteaks. Those are the messages that really bothered me more than anything else.
Oh,
that's fair. That's fair.
The funny thing is, half of the stuff is still not even posted.
Yeah,
like I'm still going through and looking at pictures I barely remember. We were living in the moment. It was a lot of fun to be had. A lot of good people, that we ran into. Shout out to Josh, the original amigo for WrestleCon for having us. It was so many other people that we can't. It's a whole list of people we could thank.
So many. All right, but we didn't come here to talk about that. We came to talk about X-Men. X-Men is getting amazing. So I came up with an early title for this one that I thought kind of encapsulated what we're about to experience on episodes 4 and 5. I call it Pixels and Pain, because this one I watched on the plane, episode 4, and it gave me some amazing feels, like straight throwback 16-bit, great graphics and imagery. And then episode 5 came to stab me in the freaking heart. So
somebody was hurt when they made that episode.
I need to ask these people, like, yo, who hurt y'all? Because now you hurt us all.
Well, to take it to wrestling, episode 4, kind of a palate cleanser match there for what we were going to see eventually in episode 5. And I enjoyed it based on a lot of connections to things X-Men related that I think we all love. You have the comic books that you get with the 2 stories in it, where it is like 2 shorter, stories being told in one comic book. That's just something that's part of, comic book tradition. And not to mention everything we saw with the video game stuff. I still remember hating Mojo on a Game Gear game from years ago. So the fact that he's the game master once again in this episode, spot on.
I love it. All right, so I'm going to read the recap that I wrote here, but what I want to do is if I get to a point where it's something that you really want me to stop on, that's the point where you stop me. Raise your hand and be like,
all right.
Yeah. So, Motendo / Life Death Part 1. Written by Chase Conley, directed by Bo DeMaio and Charlie Feldman. The X-Men wish to celebrate Jubilee's 18th birthday against hating Magneto's wishes. Just a total hater. But anyway, moving on. They cannot support her choice to spend it at the arcade. Roberto consoles her before they are pulled into a video game based on any of her previous adventures created by Mojo. Mojo has moved on from TV into the world of video games, as he's found this an easier way to corrupt the youth, I guess. Jubilee considered staying, but an older digital copy of herself from the game's beta version, called Abscissa, convinces her that she will be living an empty life in the game. Message. With Abscissa's aid, Jubilee and Roberto fight their way through the game and defeat Mojo before Spiral sends them back to the real world, where Jubilee kisses Roberto. That is the Motendo wrap-up. Now, I really love this episode. Like I said, the imagery, the graphics, it's a total love letter to to me, the golden era of video games, of beat 'em ups, classics. And what's wild is they could have just repurposed all the X-Men arcade game stuff, but they didn't. They created whole new scenarios, whole new character sprites. They rebuilt everything and made it look amazing. I need to go dig deep on this and see who did a lot of the pixel art for this. I wonder if it's even somebody I might have known or whose work I've seen, but I just can't say enough about how good it made me feel. I was like, oh man, this is it. Like, I love it that everybody knows the X-Men arcade game is like the epitome of beat 'em up, fun, quarter munching, activities. And they really did a really good job of highlighting that.
Well, I just think the only miss here was them not actually coordinating a Rise of Jubilee video game alongside with this episode, because that's what I found myself wanting to do the minute I finished it, was go play this game. Where's this game? Where are we at, Capcom? Let's get this out on the streets.
Or even like a mobile game. Like, give it something.
Could have been on mobile instantly. Like, they could have popped the same day.
Yeah.
So many really good when they're flipping through the channels, the A Different World, and so many things I saw pop up on the screen were like really good Easter eggs. They're so good at Easter eggs in this show that you never want to miss a thing, and then you probably want to watch it more than once to pick up on them.
The pacing of this episode was pretty good. Like if you guys remember when the cold open of the episode and everything, when they're waiting on Jubilee, talking and discussing, like, Magneto technically said, "Nah, we training," but then as soon as Jubilee walked in, everybody else just pretty much ignored Magneto. They were like, "Hey, so what do you want to do?"
Let's let her choose. Like, let's ignore this because he's just hating. Oh man, I've really thought I dug the idea. Let's talk about the decision to split it into 2 halves, and maybe that being, to me, I thought a kind of a throwback to maybe how some of the older cartoons maybe in the 90s would do that.
Yes,
where you get 2 episodes, like a Ren and Stimpy or whatever, and you got 2 episodes. But then they decide to go completely, like, tonally different on the 2. So what do you think of the decision to split the episodes there, Derek?
I think that the Motendo one wasn't a full episode, right? So at some point you had to figure out where you were going to do that, if you were going to do that episode. After having watched episode 5, you couldn't have put either of these episodes after episode 5. Like, the stakes changed so drastically that I think even the telling of Storm's story is something that kind of needed to be handled before things took the turn that they did in episode 5. So, like, after watching the 2 episodes, I understand it more. I do think that the Storm, story is interesting because of the way they left it off in a cliffhanger. this again, going back to my love of comic books and the way that comic books were, I never understood what the hell was going on. It always felt like, even if I got 2 comic books in a row, like we were like, wait, this one ended this way. Why isn't this one picking up in the same way? Right. And it was because they were going to eventually get around to finishing telling that story, but they kind of tell stories in comic book story arcs the same way. So I love the fact that they're following, the source material so closely when it comes to how they're kind of doing some of these episodes and when they're telling the arc and when they're finishing it, that mixed with the fact that they're not doing they're doing the week by week release and not doing it all at once. It just really makes me feel like I'm going to the comic book store once a month and picking up that episode or picking up that book and seeing what happens next. That's the coolest part about the way that they are structuring all of this to me. And again, like you said, it did feel very much like Saturday morning cartoons in the past and things where they had the 2 episodes. We just didn't usually get, an episode that ended the way that the part 1 of Storm's story being told, or, her getting her powers back, kind of ends there without a completion in that episode.
I think the way that they're doing the storytelling is similar to how certain American cartoons recently have been doing, where it's episodic, but they focus on pushing the overarching storyline across. Because I think the fact that Forge is a part of the storyline, and they kind of alluded to Cable and everybody else,
Right.
they kind of have to get to that point. It all interacts with the Storm storyline, so they kind of have to push that forward, and it's kind of going to be like the whole thing, like they don't want you to forget about Storm, so they're going to continue pushing that. And I think when the eventual powers come back, it's going to lead to her to another adventure. I think she's the character that's going to bring the arc back around to the main team.
Yeah, I agree with that.
That's how they're carrying it. It's
I
like
also
she's
think
on a side quest.
I think with this stuff too, right? With what goes on, I know we're going to get to episode 5 and I keep talking about it, but what goes on in that episode, it kind of needs someone like Storm to kind of be out of the picture, because Storm is very powerful and Storm can cruise out to Genosha real fast and help out, right? Like, so for her being kind of down, kind of aids the where the story goes going forward. And again, I think that both of these things kind of had to be told before what happens next, especially the Motendo one, because I mean, this episode already is kind of light and fun. It shows a couple of things, in regards to, obviously Jubilee and obviously Sunspot kind of being a bitch, but that's a whole other thing. But we have the fact that like you can't tell this lighthearted, I think, kind of a story anymore once the stakes get as high as they're heading at this point. So it makes sense that they kind of had to do these episodes where they did. But yeah, I really do love the fact that like they're telling it the way it is and having us wait to find out the conclusion of the story.
All right. I've given this show so many props, and the only thing, I think this is the only point where I got to, I guess, the only bit of like harsh criticism, which would be that I just didn't like Life Death Part 1 as much as Motendo or some of the other stuff. And it's only because it's a shorter thing and it's a much more serious story that needs more time. And clearly they agree because it's called Part 1. But I just felt like there wasn't enough time in that half an episode to even catch us up on Forge falling in love with Storm, all these other things.
That I Love You came fast.
I was like, for real? Like, what? How long's it been? Well, so it to me was very abbreviated. And to me, that's a bit of a knock, if I could say so.
I think it's going to the fact that Forge knew of Storm before she knew of him. Like, I think that the affection that he had for her was prior to him meeting her. And it kind of like, it's like, when they say don't meet your heroes, well, he met his hero and fell in love with her really quick. But
so it's like, first of all, then she, like, they clearly don't know a lot about each other. You know what I mean? So he gets to the story of like how, the government used me and yada, yada. Like, here's my real story. But I love you though. Don't leave. It's like it to me felt a little quick, a little jumbled. I would have liked Life Death to be a full episode. That's probably my only,
I
real
mean,
complaint
I
about it.
may have been responsible for you not having your powers, but I love you.
But I love you though.
no, it's one of those things. I mean, in the small, like what they gave us, like 12 minutes or something. I don't know, maybe
Yeah,
less than
something like
that.
that.
We got the Storm character fleshed out more than we got in 3 movies with Halle Berry, and so
That's true. That's very true.
That is true.
But one small point that I give the credit of the Motendo part was that it kind of answered certain critics about, why is Jubilee still on this X-Men team when she's considered a liability? But the fact that they showed an older version of her that has full control of her powers shows you that everybody can be that, high level threat once they're trained up. So the disrespect of Jubilee should not continue after this, because her aged version of her showed that she is just like at the tip of the iceberg in terms of what she can do with her powers.
I like that. She does come of age. So we can leave the weak role for Roberto, because he got that on lock.
Yeah.
I mean, the irony is Sunspot is one of the most powerful mutants.
Right. But he's like, I can't be seen doing it because people will know, and then like he'll get on camera and stuff. Like
he's torn. He's torn. He cares about what people think.
But then in episode 4, he's chilling in the background where they're like, "This is clearly the house of all mutants," and he's like, "Hey guys, chilling, watching TV
here." So, reading ahead a little bit, as I've been trying not to do with this, I just read the titles at least, and so it's good to know that Life Death Part 2 is a full episode. So I'm excited to know that the Storm Forge situation with the adversary popping up, all these things that are happening within that episode, I think we're going to get a full explanation, and it's going to probably lead towards how this show wraps up, because it's right before the final 3, which is a trilogy. So I will ask you all, how did you rate the Motendo / Life Death episode of X-Men 97? Derek,
I'll let our guests
first.
I'll say I give it an 8 out of 10. I think that it was still a lot of fun for me personally, and I think that's what this show is. If someone else has never consumed the X-Men at all and wants to wonder what like all of our excitement is about, I can't help you with that. But like when they make an episode like this with all of the video game references in there, I mean, that the arcade game is one of the reasons why I love X-Men. And that's a lot of my life. Is a lot of times I got into things because I played a video game that featured that property, that IP in it. And the next thing you know, I wanted to know more about it. I wanted to read the comic books. I wanted to watch the cartoon. I watched that pilot episode of the cartoon before this series so many times as a kid because I loved that. And so like there were so many things I felt like in these 2 episodes that really made me, brought back a lot of memories about buying comic books and playing the video games as a kid, just everything X-Men related for me.
All right. You got an 8. Marcos, what you got?
I'm going to give it an 8. We normally give it a high 9 or something like that, but I'm going to give it an 8. It wasn't a bad episode, but it's the heat before it and the heat after. It's kind of like,
that's what,
you know what I mean? If this was a run of the mill episode in some other IP, it would have probably gotten a 9. But the simple fact that has heat behind it, I mean, before it and heat after, 8 is what I'm comfortable with.
Okay. I went a little lower. I was a little more harsh, only because I felt like Forge and the feelings came too quick for me. I felt like 7.5. I almost wrote 7, and I was like, all right, I'll give him a half point.
I got a question.
Video game references.
The video game stuff is a 10. So I guess if you average it out, part 2 of that was a 6 on the second half. So I don't know. But 7.5 for me is I think it's a high 7.5 if that's possible.
But what if Forge's secret unpublished power is to fall in love quick? Like, yeah, no.
In that case,
Like he forges feelings on just random encounters.
hope this
Gonna be at Whole Foods, like, I love you.
Yo.
It's like, no,
falling in
not
love with
again.
cashiers and the security guard on his way out the door. I can't help it. It's my mutant power. I love it too much.
Oh man. If that's the case, I stand corrected. Oh man. All right. So speaking of quick love affairs, the entire internet, and I would assume us included, has completely been punched in the gut of episode 5, which is maybe has taken this show past the original X-Men cartoon series.
It absolutely did.
Like,
Yeah,
so I don't want to oversell it, but man, I watched it twice, and absolutely episode 5, remember it, is where the separation begins for this series to become its own standalone masterpiece.
Yeah.
Because respect to the original X-Men, but it never hit me like this. And maybe it's just the adult theme and adult nature, and we're different. You know, if I was 12 watching it, maybe it wouldn't hit me. I don't know. But man,
no.
All right.
You know why? I'm going to say this. My daughter, you know her. She's 12 years old. She's a tough cookie. She doesn't really get emotional about a lot of things. She cried at the end of this episode. Wow. And then she looked at me and said she didn't know how she was going to be able to watch it with her best friend because it was going to crush her. Right. So like there are things about this that translate between, age, old, young, all of that kind of stuff. This was just a perfect episode of a television show. And I've said this a couple of times, but this is everything that you want. You know, they got you so emotionally invested in a cartoon that the entire world that has seen it is talking about it and saying it's one of the best pieces of art, like this form of art that they've ever seen. And I mean, it's hard to argue that this wasn't a perfect episode of a superhero show. It really was.
Absolutely. So I'm probably the only person that had this issue. So I'll just put it out there, where it took a few moments of me stopping, pausing, and rewinding, is that I was getting Jean and Madeline mixed up. I was like, wait, okay, all right. So it took a second,
That's my design.
And again, that's on purpose. Like clearly, Scott had the same issue. You know what I mean? So
no. Scott knew what he was doing.
Actually,
don't let him off the hook that easy.
You know what?
He knew what he was doing.
All
like,
right,
yo, he came off.
He knew.
Came off cruddy when he was like, "It's only been a couple times." Like, my man,
like a month ago, we just miss each other.
Like, my man, like, yo, my man had an X-Men sneaky link. Literally a neuro sneaky link.
The neuro sneaky link. Yeah. Man.
Well, that's what's so good about this is they went with it, right? Like we joke about the old show. We know they tiptoed around like Wolverine and Jean and Scott and their little throuple that they have, and like some other kind of relationship issues. I don't think they've ever gone this hard into it that they did in this episode, both with Rogue, Magneto, and Gambit, and with Jean and Jean and Scott, and also Wolverine. It's a little foursome thing going on. It's a lot of love triangles and stuff going on.
It's a little crazy.
But do you think I feel like Jean Grey, being the character that she is, she's gonna say, "But I kiss Wolverine." Like, I feel like that's gonna be the first bullet she's gonna fire at Scott.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, she's kind of justified in pulling that out, but like it's gonna happen and it's gonna hurt. It's gonna hurt deep.
When Jean said she's like I like space and time was called, like the planets, the solar system was calling me, and I stayed here for you, for your ass. Like that was such a big time superhero like relationship fight moment for me. I was like, oh, what do you have to say about that? She gave up being a celestial being for you.
Yeah,
what do you have to say now?
I mean,
he's just sitting there like,
yo, it is such a complicated situation. Like, even for those, like, the internets have been full of like this hate for Wolverine when a bunch of adults like us that are content creators rewatched the original one, and they were like, wait a minute, the original X-Men didn't really have a 3-person relationship. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It was just Wolverine pining for Jean and being a scumbag.
Yeah.
But then the time that he had everything, my man was like, "Nah, I'm a stand-up guy, bro. Like, hey, you work that out. Like, you're not my piece no more. Like, I don't know what to tell you. Like, I like talking about it, but hey."
This is too far. I know Scott. He's a good
Yeah,
guy.
he's like,
he literally. I thought my man was gonna be like, "Yes, Weapon X mode." No, he was like, "No,
Weapon X."
Schnickety schnick.
Nope. He played his part. He's like, nah, you know what? I gotta work with that guy. I'm cool.
Yeah, he's like, "No, it's Scott and Jean, bro. That's that's how it is. That's how it is. I'm good. I'm good."
Respect, man. Wolverine has and I think I saw someone say it, and I really was thinking the same thing. Like, Wolverine's role in X-Men 97 in general has been great because it's been so limited.
Yeah.
And I think in the fact that, we know everybody loves Wolverine. We know he's the guy, but like, let's subdue him a little bit. And when he does appear, it's more powerful, it's more notable, and more respectable. Like, he's been playing his part, and he's doing a very great job, I think, at that. You know, it's tough in a show where, you know, you got all these dynamic, you know, superheroes for people to get their time and their shine. But I think they've been using Wolverine perfectly.
Yeah.
But also he's been shirtless a lot, like he is on Duran the entire series. It's like, bro, where's your shirt at?
Like, I didn't work out this whole time between when that show ended and this show started to not be showing these abs off. You know what I mean?
Oh man.
But no, I was gonna say that could be said about all of the X-Men, because they're really not letting, like, everybody's had like a moment or two, but we haven't like seen the whole team come together, which I imagine is going to be a huge moment at the end of the season, and just whoop ass. And like they've at least given us these little glimpses that when they do team up, when they do come together, they're a problem, right? But it's like, that's the whole concept of it, is that this is this team of people that all have all of these personal struggles and issues with each other, but at the end of the day, when they come together, you can't beat them, right? And like, I like that they're working up to that, because that's an easy thing to fall back on a cartoon like this, and that kind of shows like how advanced this storytelling is. But this episode for storytelling went crazy, bonkers.
Yes, they had some I feel like if we're talking about like breakout moments, you know, I listed that I think this episode had the best moments of Magneto, best moments of Rogue, and the best of Gambit. However, I gotta put my hating hat on real quick and say, I'm gonna say something.
Before you say that,
go ahead,
because we're getting real deep into it. I have to be the stickler. Can you read the episode description before? We're already jumped in. We're swimming.
We're in relationships. We're in throuple.
So let's read the description before we continue this deep end convo.
It's so much to talk about. So again, when I get to something cool you want to stop and talk about, please stop me. Cyclops and Jean have grown distant, unable to reconcile their separate lives. Worsening matters, she discovers that he has been communicating telepathically with Madeline and begins to develop feelings for Wolverine. Meanwhile, after Genosha is admitted into the UN, Magneto, Rogue, and Gambit head to the country, where Rogue and Gambit reunite with Madeline and Nightcrawler, while Magneto meets with the Genoshan Council. I want to stop on Nightcrawler and say, love the guy. I just wanted more from this episode, and maybe we'll get more later.
Hold on. We got the bomb Easter egg that, like, they came out of nowhere when Gambit was like, yo, you still hanging out with those assassin priests, which was the last time we saw him.
Yeah.
And a lot of people were like, wait a minute. And I was like, there it is. Like, I did my Leo, like, there it is.
Yep. True. That was a great callback.
I squealed when Nightcrawler popped up. I really did. I mean, just like the animation on this show is so gorgeous and impeccable, but like, man, the fact that they got him so right in the limited amount of screen time that he had. And you're right. But again, I feel like sometimes, especially in an ensemble show like this, getting those little bits of them is like, it makes you want him more than if they made an entire episode, you know, surrounding him and making him kind of the focal point, right? So like, I was so delighted by him showing up and just immediately his personality being shown so perfectly.
Yeah.
I think, I mean, I could probably agree with that. I wanted more from him, but that's the point. You're supposed to want more. You can't be like, all right, man, he was all over the screen. He was everywhere. I got tired of seeing Nightcrawler, you know? So you don't want that. after Magneto meets with the Genosian Council, they want him to lead. And he said, I can't lead without a number 2. Rogue, my darling. He wants Rogue. They got history. They finally get into the full history. And then Rogue eventually declines, which I didn't see coming. I was like, oh, it's going down. I was back and forth. I was like, nah, not gonna do it. Wait, might do it. Nah, yeah, nah. And she eventually says, no, can't do it. And then we get a surprise visitor from the future, my man Cable.
Baby boy,
full grown, who says, yo, sorry about what's about to happen, yo. But yo, get down, because it's bad.
That's it. Like, sorry. Oh, my time's up. I gotta go. Get down. Protect your neck.
My man was like, hold on, I just paid for the trial.
It's like, oh, it's about to be real bad. Sorry. Oh,
but
man.
Little watermark over him.
Yeah, like, oh, I can't talk.
Amidst this battle, it realizes that Cable is adult Nathan. Suddenly, a wild sentinel appears and leads the sentinels in attacking Genosha and seemingly killing Madeline, Magneto, and dozens of other mutants. And then our boy Gambit makes a sacrifice play to destroy the wild sentinel, leaving Rogue heartbroken with the line that will forever,
oh my god,
be stuck in my freaking brain. Oh my god. When she says, I can't feel you on a black screen, I'm like, yo,
I can't feel you anymore. Like, man.
First of all, wow. And you know, I think I'm gonna go backwards here a little bit. I think Gambit, what he did when, you know, what led to his supposed demise, I think that was strategic. I think he knew that if he jumped forward, the Sentinel, what are we calling it? The centipede or whatever it was, the Sentinel crawler, whatever the bug Sentinel it was, like he knew that it was gonna like stab him. And then he used his blood to energize the Sentinel to make it explode. Second, and this might be not a spoiler. It's not. I think this is where they could throw us for a heavy loop because we have so many assumptions of who's gone. And they could go a different route. They can go so many different ways here. Yeah. And I think these deaths are going to have consequences. And my third thing that I want to pull up is like I don't know. Although she's introduced to us as an ally, I feel like Valerie Cooper was involved because she didn't like they gave her no dialogue on purpose, and she did not look. She looked concerned, but she didn't look as worried as she was when they were prosecuting Magneto.
She looked concerned, like she might get hit with friendly fire in that scene, right?
Yeah.
Like, yeah, but there's definitely something more to that. I think that the biggest thing about this episode is the stakes that they went so big. And of course, just the chain of events that happened there, right? You know, Magneto essentially sacrificing himself to protect the Morlocks. You got Rogue wanting to go and save Magneto, and Magneto making her and Gambit both stay back. And then just the unbridled rage from Rogue after she thinks that Magneto is dead and she wants to go after the Sentinel herself. Gambit saving her and sacrificing himself. Like, I think the one thing here is that it's so big that for me, it's inevitable that they rectify it in some way. But that's comic books, right? Historically, nobody stays dead in comic books, and that's just.
But do you think it's a this season solution?
I don't know, though. See, that's the thing is, I feel like they're not. They are willing to play big games with this, and I mean, go big with it, right? Like they know that adults are watching this. They know kids aren't watching this. They know this is for us, the true comic book fans, and I think they're giving us, you know, those kind of moments. And honestly, like again, even if even if it's just comic books and you think eventually it can get rectified, you still feel a little differently about it. So they had to make this tug on your heartstrings so much there at the end. That ending was perfect. They made it so hard not to be absolutely heartbroken at the sacrifice Gambit made, and the way that like you said, Mega Ran, that line she delivers, that was done over the black the way it was so perfectly, because it just needed to hit you, and it needed to be that moment of ultimate loss for us as fans of this show who have been watching Gambit since the first episode, when that's when most people kind of fell in love with Gambit, was this cartoon.
Facts. So the thing I didn't get to say earlier, I wound up eating my words when by the time it ended, is Gambit had a much huger role in this episode. So I was like, oh, finally, I think I'm coming around to Gambit, because I don't like Gambit's voice acting in this show. And I think I realized that the more he was going on, I wasn't so moved by it. Maybe it was his character, maybe not the voice acting, but I just didn't feel like he was, I don't know, I didn't get any emotion from what he was doing throughout most of the show. It was, his accent was kind of going in and out. I was being a little nitpicky watching the last episode. And I was like, you know what? I don't know, Gambit. Maybe hanging back is okay. And then Gambit goes to the full forefront and like kills it and has an amazing episode, and then is gone by the end. So I'm like, no, did I do that?
I mean, I did that to him.
So I felt really bad. Like, but I was just coming around to his character, and then for him to kind of, and it's like, just a rough time for it.
All of his actions in this episode were that of a noble person, which at times Gambit has kind of shown he's not. Right? He's a womanizer. He's a scoundrel. He's all of that, but he's ultimately good at the end. When we come down to this episode,
he threw a bomb at Scott, didn't he? Or like, who was it? Wolverine? Like in the kitchen. You don't remember that? Like he threw the lit up card.
Right.
I was like, yo, Gambit is off the hook this season.
But you still have him, right? Like getting essentially left by Rogue for Magneto and being a gentleman about it, and then still
ate it.
Right?
He ate it.
I mean, still saving her in the end and everything that he did. Like, I think that it was like the redemption arc for Gambit to show you that in the end, he's a good dude. He's a hero.
And he's not a scoundrel, because I think the scene that we got when he was getting ready wearing the tux was that Rogue was going to tell him, like, listen, this is all for show. I'm still in love with you. Right? Weren't you getting that feeling? And then he was like, hey, it's all good with me, but we're going to just be friends.
Yeah.
Like, that's the only way I'm going to be in your life from this point on. Yeah. Until he eventually crushes your heart. Like, my man was smooth with it, too. He was like, yeah, you'll be back.
He was.
You'll be back, but we're going to be friends. And I thought he was going to go into dog mode at that gala. I thought he was going to start talking to, like, every person move.
Get back to scoundrel mode and just pull as much as he could. But
no, instead we get Gambit. The name's Gambit, mon ami. Remember it. And that moment too, just like you said with the Rogue at the end, it's perfect.
There's so many great moments. We didn't even get into Magneto's final line to Leech in German, being like, "Don't be afraid." Part of me it's almost like wrestling, right? We look at this and we're like, "All right, do we think this is the end?" And then you start pulling back and being like, "Well, it's only episode 5. It can't be. They got to bring him back." So as far as what we think we know about shows like this, we feel like by the end we'll get some time travel and we'll sort it all out. But knowing that this show is going to get another season, it doesn't necessarily have to happen right now. So
two more, they said.
2 more. Wow.
They already storyboarded season 3. Which means that they're ready to animate if there's like a storyboard already.
My goodness. Well, so this could come back later. It doesn't have to be sorted out in the next 3 episodes at all. So we could really see the X-Men have to move forward without like a lot of major characters, which is insane. Like when this started, I didn't have any idea that we would get here,
And then we get the character that everybody that's a fan of the game wanted, Colossus. Maybe, they throw him in. Like there's so many versions of the X-Men team, and it's like the show has never really put together the version that I like the most. Yeah. But they still have time.
I want to talk about the pacing of this episode, and what makes it so great to me is that literally the first 15, 16 minutes are just calm, peaceful, serene storytelling, good stuff. We get a lot of good exposition, and then it just gets real.
Yeah.
Like there's just a moment where we're like, oh, it's on, and it's just from there. The music changes, the lighting changes, the vibe completely changes, and it's literally 2 episodes in one because it's so different from where we start in the beginning with Genosha and all this stuff. So it absolutely blew me away. Like the storytelling here, the pacing, just putting heroes in danger. That's to me always been my issue with the MCU.
Stakes.
Is I never feel like these guys are in real danger of dying.
Yeah.
Like I never feel like that. And that's my only thing. The stakes are never extremely high, and so this cartoon has managed to do that. And then it made me think, like, what if? So I think, what if when Marvel is ready to do an MCU X-Men movie, they continue with this storyline? Like, what if? Like, that would be amazing. Like,
I mean, they're doing the heavy lifting now, which is really not that heavy. Like,
Yeah.
like honestly, it might be a situation where whoever survives is a team that you move forward with on live action. If this was DC, then maybe there was a shot at that because James Gunn already said that whoever is voicing the animation is the people that are playing them in real life. So, you could have that there. But I don't know, man. Like they could go so many directions. This could be its own separate thing, just so people can like bookmark and be like, "Oh, I know who the X-Men are," and then be like, "No, this is like, it's not a TV show; it's an animation." So they could keep it ambiguous, so people are not, But then they can also go the same route as the What If series, which basically is using all the likenesses from their current characters and just animating them. So I don't know. I'm just enjoying for what it is. Like when I first saw it, I felt like I was 12 years old. I felt like the rest of my week was going to be the longest week ever. Like you remember how like on Saturdays
cereal in the morning, I was watching it with cereal and just living my best childlike life.
like I almost looked into like getting a VCR. I was like, wait, like I was like, no, it's gonna be there all Wednesday. Like, you know what I mean? Like next Wednesday. It's like, oh my God, what am I gonna do until then?
What am I gonna do? Like this is one of those where like I'm expecting them to say at the end, like, there will be no episode next week. We're gonna take off, like just so I can have some time.
God.
I'll be like, no,
that's worse. I can't do that.
Far
can't
worse.
Do that.
I mean, I don't think this episode would have hit if they would have dropped it a la Netflix, because they're known for dropping everything all at once. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like it would have not hit. The fact that now everybody in the world has to sit with this and just like,
man,
it literally goes back to something my dad taught me or told me about when he was a kid, right? He said like the reason why they did cliffhangers was because you didn't have a TV in your house. You had to go watch it in the theater. So they needed to figure out a way to bring you back. So there was never a happy ending because that woman was always going to end up back on the railroad tracks with the villain tying her up and the good guy in pursuit.
Yeah.
They wanted you to come back. And it's a big part of storytelling. We're kind of raised on it, and it makes it more exciting when you do get episodes like this and you do have to wait. You can have these amazing discussions with your friends like we're having right now. And and wonder where they're going, wonder what direction, wonder how they're gonna bring Gambit back. I mean, going back to what you said, Rand, like this episode literally changed almost in the middle of that meeting that Scott was having, in his head with Madeline Pryor, right? It was like that you just thought that was Jean and that they were having a discussion, and then shit went all haywire. And the next thing you know, you're like, it's like that. We're doing this. And then Scott's explaining and he's backtracking. And like, it felt like from that point on, everything was just like, whoa, they're doing this. Wow, wait, they're going this way. Oh shit, this is happening. Like everything felt like it was just like completely different. And the stakes were super high in this episode after that.
I also want to say, Cyclops, he doesn't need anybody shooting him any bail, but I will say
the heel turn. He turned heel in this episode.
I wanted to talk about that, how he completely turns heel in the middle of that interview and was like, you know what? Nah, I'm tired of being the goody two shoes. And he has a great quote where he says, I lie because the truth is we're nothing like you guys. And I was like, well, there it is. Like,
Yep.
he's like, look, man, like,
Yep.
we can't pretend like we're the same and we're all just trying to meld together. Like, nah, we're very different from y'all. And clearly you fear what you don't understand. So this is never going to be smooth. And he had enough, man. Like, this is the stuff that the attitude we've never gotten from him, and which is why everybody's called him stuff like soft and weak or whatever, is that he's never showed these emotions. But I think, and you know, this is gonna sound like a shooting bell, but to be a leader, part of that is swallowing those emotions, not going crazy, not flipping out, because you have the whole team behind you. And if you are shaky, then they're all shaky. So it's stronger, and it takes a stronger person to be the leader and keep those things in. But man, he had enough. He was just like, you know what?
Can we talk about the, you know, bringing in our favorite pastime, wrestling? They did a double turn, baby.
Yeah.
Magneto went full Xavier.
Yo, he did.
And you know, like you said, Scott went heel. Scott, like, he has the outrage of Magneto season 1 of the original. It's like, how dare you? Like, you know what I mean? Like, you know how many of the homies got put down because of you?
Yeah, for real.
I'm gonna save you guys next week again. You know,
like yo, he got angry, and my man got caught in the psychic episode of Cheaters.
Yep, he sure did.
Yo, he sure did. He psychically, like, yo, literally, he got
was
caught
out in the
his
streets in
mind.
front of an apartment chasing her down. Like, I'm sorry, but I'm sorry.
Like, it's like they busted into a telepathic hotel room, and he's like, baby, hold on. This is
let me explain. It's complicated.
But I think it's right. It's the truth of it, right? Good guys and bad guys in pro wrestling, good guys and bad guys in comic books, right? It's all black and white. It's not. And it just goes to show that, like, even the Boy Scout, even the guy that we've always seen as being the goodest good guy ever, can be turned by the frustrations that he's dealing with, especially when it comes to the way that mutants are ultimately treated, like, you know, like dangerous people to human beings, right? So, like, he cracks. Meanwhile, Magneto shows how much he actually cares, and his humanity is willing to sacrifice himself for others. And, like, again, no man is all good, no man is all bad at the end of the day. Well, I mean, O.J. Simpson did just die, so that's maybe a case of that. But ultimately, no man is all good and all bad, right? We all have those differences in life.
Yet we laughed at his naked gun scenes. So, you know.
Guilty.
Still the only minority I know can run straight through an airport and nobody bother him.
Yeah.
You guys remember those Hertz commercials?
Oh, yeah.
Ooh, I'm dating myself, boy.
Oh, man. I didn't expect us to get to OJ talk.
No, I just had to throw it out there. I mean, it's topical, but
it is topical. So let's rate this episode, and then I want to get into a bit of hot goss that the streets are talking about.
Hold on. Can I just drop one thing that we didn't talk about that's related to Scott and everything? So the Wolverine kiss, right? The feelings that it's kind of like she understands he's angry, but when she was speaking to Wolverine, she's kind of like over it. Like, she doesn't have the patience, which kind of messes up what I thought the timeline of when she was snatched it was, because it could be not when they were fully committed. It was when Jean was on the fence about her feelings. So the Scott probably fell in love with Madeline, and their relationship and feelings grew together. Whereas, you know, he might have just been dating Jean at the time when she got abducted. Like, you know what I mean? Like I feel like Madeline has true feelings, where Jean is kind of like, yo, I don't know where I'm at. Like, you know what I mean? Like I still feel the hot passion for your man with no shirt and the pointy hands. Like, you know,
so Madeline might really be the one.
Might be,
yeah. But you know,
right?
We don't know.
In the comics,
Emma Frost knows. Emma Frost knew what was going on. She looked over and she's like,
Frost knows. Yeah.
Oh yeah, she looked at them. She was like, "Whoa!" Like, I know what happened there.
Yep, she knew exactly what's happening.
But
that's a great throwback too, because in the comics, the psychological cheating happened with Emma Frost.
Emma Frost. Yeah,
so
she's like, I've been there with him before.
She's like, so I know.
My man is a mind jumper. It happened minds.
Oh my gosh. All right, so let's rate this episode. I mean, I'll even go first. I say this is a 10. This thing here, they did it all. And I always say, oh, I can't give anything a 10 because there's nowhere to go from there. And
I'm
for the literal middle of the show to hit a perfect 10 is setting a high bar for the rest of it. But
Yeah.
I know what I felt. I still feel it.
It's
So
real to me, damn it.
it's real to
Yeah,
me. So
real
that's
to
a
me.
10.
They set us up. These images somehow mixed with people's voices have somehow made us care so much about these characters. Like this episode is everything that this show you could expect it to be and more, right? So I mean, it's a 10 for me. It far has exceeded me just thinking we're gonna get more X-Men animated, shows. That's neat. Like now it is literally my favorite television show I'm currently watching, and I'm absolutely hooked to the point that I cannot wait for next Wednesday to see what's going to happen from this point on. And they're probably going to wait. They're probably going to do it to us where they give us like some other episode that doesn't complete the story.
Yeah.
It's like Jubilee getting her license or something. Like, wait, what?
Yeah.
45 minutes of her like, hold on.
Beast
And
going to
Beast
the
is
library.
like, what's going on? He's like, hold on. You gotta do it all over again. Like,
so what do you say, Marcos? What you give it?
You know what? I always say I'm never gonna give a show a 10, so I'm not. I'm gonna give it an 11 because I'm gonna go back and take 1 point off of the previous episode and drop that down to a 7, and then give this one an 11. This was perfect.
It deserves it.
Yeah. All right, I'll allow it. Okay, all right.
I think that's a great answer.
Clever use of numbers there. I'll take it. So we got some hot juicy goss. Y'all want the hot goss?
Go
All
ahead.
right. So we spoke about it a few episodes ago about Bo DeMaio, the X-Men 97 creator, being let go right before the show started and trying to figure out why that was happening and what was going on. He went completely dark on socials. They never said anything. And now he has arisen. He has reactivated his socials and he's talking. Good news and bad news about his talking. He's not talking about why he was let go, but he's talking about episode 5. So I think it's okay. Didn't get into his specifics, but he talks about how the 5th episode was the centerpiece of his original pitch for the whole show. He says the idea was to have the X-Men mirror the journey of any of us who grew up with the original show. The world seemed like it was a safe place for us. And then major events would happen, like 9/11, like COVID, like he mentions the Pulse shooting in Orlando, and how it would take characters and it would change them. Like major events change people. And that's literally what happens here. Like we are in it, everything's fine. And then it just gets real. Cable's like, yo, it's about to go down. Sorry, Mom. And then it happens. Sorry, Mom. We messed up over there. It's going down. And yes, he said it looked like Gambit's story had a specific direction, but if events like 9/11, Charlottesville, yada yada, too many stories are often cut short. And he goes into a lot of detail. You can check it out on his Twitter, which is Bo DeMaio. Goes way in and just talks about being an adult in an unsafe world and how things can change. And like that's what the X-Men are trying to operate in and trying to fight their way through is being the kid or the child or the adult, the different person who just wanted to be laughing and living and free and eating $10 apples like they do in the show and enjoying life. And then things just completely go into hell.
I love that was for Gambit the first sign something was wrong. It's like, wait a minute, $10 apples? The hell's
I think that's
going
to come around. I think that's gonna come around. Not specifically the apples. Like I feel like something's gonna happen, and that is a great take by the former director of the show. Like I really like that he was able to comment on his art, that he was a part of, and without putting the real world situations in it. It kind of it's pretty cool to hear that. Hopefully we keep it like that and it's all positivity coming from him, that he's not going to give us a hot take when the season ends.
It's
I
got to be
like that.
hard.
Yeah,
It's
he
got to be
didn't get
hard to
all.
be a part of something that you
Yeah,
helped create that is so popular right now and has lit the world on fire in the way that you knew that it could, and not be a part of it. And I'm not, who knows what he did to cause him to not be a part of it any longer. I don't want to excuse any behavior, but it's just got to be heartbreaking when he obviously cares so much about this source material and about the show. And it shows. This show, that's the one thing that you can say watching this, is the people making it love the X-Men and care about it and put their heart into it. And they did it for us as fans. They did it for themselves probably as fans. And they made something that is quite possibly one of the best like comic book, creations outside of actual comic books ever.
You know,
100%.
speaking that, it sounds like we're going to get some lasting consequences based on what Rand went over.
Sure.
So,
Yeah.
before we wrap up or whatever, I want to ask you guys a question. Out of all the implied deaths that we saw, off screen or on screen, out of all the names, I want everybody to say who they think is going to be the one that's going to be the longest lasting. Even if they all get rectified, who you think is going to be the one that lasts the longest? It's going to have the deepest consequence. That is like gone. And you're like, oh man, they're not suddenly be like, oh, he's hurt, and then we're gonna heal him immediately,
Yeah,
or like we're gonna take him. It's gonna be like
Gone.
grief is gonna be expressed for this character.
The answer needs to be Gambit. I think because Gambit's death tugs on your heartstrings the most here, and it's the most obvious death. We know Gambit died. We still don't know the fate of Magneto and some of the others. We know that one girl with the patch, we saw that light go out in her eye, right? But
Yeah.
We know that there's not a lot of people right now we can confirm dead after this episode. So I think Gambit, right? I think Gambit can become a quest for Rogue that drives her both positively and negatively going forward, where she might see that going to the future because of Bishop and Cable and all of that is her answer to time travel to getting him back. And she might become obsessed with it. Like, all of that is good storytelling to me. And I think Gambit is one of those characters, once again, that we all came to love because of this show, that it would be fitting that we also saw his death on this show.
Rand?
Yeah, I can actually agree with that. If you want to ask who I think is like staying gone, then yeah, I would say someone who we definitely saw on screen and have developed a love for and really felt that death, which would be Gambit. But I don't know. As now I'm thinking like who's coming back. I'll flip it. You're asking who's going to be going and who's coming back. I think Professor X is coming back. I do think that, just from some friends who read the comics, we talk a lot, and they're thinking that that these Wild Sentinels are the result of Professor X's twin sister, Cassandra Nova. And that's like a really small comic arc that could wind up bringing the professor back. So I don't know if they're going there, because one thing we don't have, at least in these first 5 episodes, is we don't have a big bad. You know what I mean? The big bad's on the good guy's side now. So we don't have a big bad who's wild. I mean, I guess Mr. Sinister perhaps.
He ain't a big bad.
But no, he's always been B tier at best. And so we do not have a big bad. So I have no idea who it could be.
Humanity is the big bad.
Could be
I think the biggest enemy at the end is gonna probably be that doctor. I think she's gonna be the one that's secretly not gonna be behind it all, but she's gonna be a person that is gonna be like, hey, you know what? I tried to be on your side, and this is the reason why I'm not anymore. And I allowed these things to happen. Now, to answer my own question, who I think honestly, my gut is saying Gambit, but I think it's Magneto. The reason why is because the kid gloves are off. Charles made the change. Magneto changed. He already went full circle in his arc. Magneto now has become from villain to hero. I think the sacrifice it's going to be that he saved the people that he was around, and his body just was done. I think Rogue might have a situation where she's going to make a tough choice. It's going to haunt her. she might grab somebody's healing factor that's near her, which is going to be shit if she does, and save Remy, and that's going to cause her to have like a downward spiral that's going to mess with her. Yeah, and I'm also in agreement. I think Xavier is coming back, but I don't think he's coming back the way we think. I think ultimately the team is going to be headed by Cyclops, and this is going to bug you out. It's going to be Cyclops and Wolverine. I think that's going to be, they're going to have to be the yin and yang. They're going to keep each other in line.
That makes a lot of sense, actually.
And you know what I mean? It's like, because think about it, Charles and Xavier. The reason is one was very calculated, which is Charles.
Wait, we talking about?
And I'm saying like the dichotomy of the leadership in the X-Men world. Charles was calculated.
Okay.
Magneto was emotional. You have both present in Cyclops and in Wolverine, and I think the fact that we're seeing an emotional Cyclops and an actual thinking Wolverine is like an Easter egg, you know. But hey, I'm talking out of my ass as a fan. I might be completely wrong. So
I don't know. Magneto had the coldest line of the show, by the way, when she said most other nations don't allow a terrorist to be their leader, and he said, yet so many allow their leaders to be terrorists. And man, I was like, let's go. Bars, Magneto.
Like, you guys ever seen Don't Be a Menace? I thought a guy in the background was gonna be like, message.
Yeah. That's good stuff, man. So I've enjoyed this show, especially this episode. We have talked for an hour, and we hope you enjoyed it too. So I want to thank you for sitting with us for our action-packed double episode of X-Pod 97. Cap, please tell the people how they can find you on the interwebs.
I'm on Twitter all the time. I'm at Cap_caveman with a K.
That's easy. All right. And we will answer any questions you have if you hashtag XPod97. I am at Megaran. He's at the Sunset Kid 56. And I'm Megaran. That's Marcos. And this is your XPod 97, brought to you by the great folks at Geekscape. And please keep on watching, sharing, listening, giving us all the stars we can get. And we're going to keep on bringing it to you. Thank you. Your, as of today, 20th ranked animation podcast in the world, Craig, is XPod 97. And we out. Peace, y'all. Had to do it. The 90s are back. Mega Friend. Let's go. This is mutant music. Spark the revolution to this. This is mutant music. X-Men, yes, it is destined. This is mutant music. Spark the revolution to this. This is mutant movement music. X-Men, yes, we are legends.